The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you had a great weekend. We're back and ready for plenty of recruiting talk. Big time weekend for Nebraska football as the final visit weekend here before the dead period. And the Big Red turned out and did a wonderful job with staff and coaches and players and peer recruiting. And I think you can expect some big things for Nebraska on the 2024 front. Numbers to get in today, 489-1240, 489-1240. The numbers to dial up. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. And you're always welcome to watch the show, not just listen across the Hail Varsity Radio Network, but check us out on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, as well as the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. I have all sorts of recruiting to get into. I'm in a Twitter debate. Well, not even Twitter debate. I get annihilated. But a text debate with our dear friend Brady Oltmans of Hail Varsity. The topic of all whites. Brady put out on Twitter, bless his heart, and he did an amazing job covering recruiting, hailvarsity.com at Brady Oltmans. He was on with Coffee and Cream this morning. But the players love the all-white unis, the ice look. And it isn't for me, dude. I don't play. I talk about it. I love talking about the games, the action, the recruiting. I get to go blab for 2 hours, 6 days a week. It's wonderful. It isn't for me. And I am not trying to reenact Clint Eastwood and Gran Torino about being the grumpy old bastard in his lawn chair. Okay, that I may sound like it, I may look like it, but if the kids are all about it, it's a team vote, it's a captain thing, you do you. Fine.
I don't know, if you walk like a duck, if you talk like a duck.
I'm just superstitious, and there's a lot of Nebraska fans that are superstitious about the all-whites. Hasn't worked out too often. Really ever. Okay? And some of the teams that lost in all-whites were really good. Really good teams. Really, really good teams. Babbers can help me out on this, but I think memory serves, and I'll just throw it out there. Brady is so good. I just reeled off all these stunning, heart-wrenching, there's no Jack Daniels left in the bar, all-white losses, okay, during the early 1990s or even some of the 2000s in the Callahan era. And Brady, damn his fact-checking. He's like, well, do you want to count the number of losses on the road when they were wearing red and white? That all changes. All whites can be a good thing under Coach Rhule. Red and white can be a wonderful thing. You want to lose Dolman? You tell him to wear all red. He will go nuts. PTSD.
Well, that's a terrible look. Let's make some people.
You know what's even a worse look? Keith Jackson down the sideline. You're up 10 and you lose. So, the all-white debate, man. Need a player's perspective. Okay, so Matt's there to come off the top rope with the steel chair. They won against Minnesota in all whites. Very true. They did have some success. They almost beat Wisconsin in overtime. They lost to Miami in overtime during the Riley era in all whites. I think they lost. I think Wisconsin was the all-white game, right? Doesn't Nate Gary do a couple slides into second base to make a couple of interceptions in 2016? In that overtime game, but in my childhood, this is what I remember for the all whites. 2007 wasn't childhood, but Colorado put up 65 in Billy C's last game. That was an all white game. Iowa State. Jim Walden wants Nebraska to wear whites all the time when they play Iowa State. Nebraska lost to Iowa State in 1992, 19-10. They lost at number 2 Washington in all whites. They got beat soundly in the Citrus Bowl by Georgia Tech in 91 in all whites. Sorry to get off on this tangent. We'll talk recruiting, I promise. Tommy Frazier did win in all whites in his debut in 92. They won 34-24 at Missouri. They lost. So right now, I can count on one hand after a mowing accident the number of times they've won wearing all whites.
Mm-hmm. And I think the defining
but again, it's
memory,
up to the players.
The defining memory of the all whites is not the Minnesota 2016, 2015, whatever year that was, whenever Nebraska wins in Minnesota. I think at least of my generation,
we're going to give Searles credit for that one.
The defining memory of the all whites to me, and I get the point, is that 2014 game whenever Melvin Gordon runs for 400-plus yards.
Oh, yeah.
That's when Nebraska was in the all whites in the snow.
Oh, no.
That was all whites.
That was 24. Ooh.
Yeah, 2014, which that was Bo's year, to be fair. That was not a Riley year at Wisconsin. That was Bo's final year.
But it was all white. They're nicknamed the Surrender Whites.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there we go. We've just laid out the argument for no whites.
And can I just throw this out there?
Sure.
The whole start of this conversation was seeing Nebraska's recruits from the official visit weekend wearing all whites on the field. Could that be a case of, hey, we don't wear these all whites anymore. You get to wear the jerseys we actually wear once you're a player, but while you're here on the recruiting visit, you can get a taste of Nebraska. You can wear the white pants with the white jersey because we don't wear those anymore. You get the right to the red pants with the white jerseys once you're actually on campus, once you're actually a player. But for now, you got to toil through these really nice-looking all-white uniforms that we never actually wear. That's my take, at least. I think they look awesome.
They look cool. They look incredibly awesome.
Well, we were talking last week.
They just don't win.
We were talking last week. Was the problem the white jerseys, or was it the talent on the field? Did Nebraska have enough talent to win in all-white uniforms?
Damn Brady and his logic with, well, let's count the number of wins and losses when they're wearing the traditional road uniforms. Yeah, you got me. You got me there. I'm just saying it. Maybe this is just, you bring a live chicken, you take some of Joe Boo's rum, whatever the case may be. Maybe the all whites can work.
Maybe it can work now with the new Herbie Husker.
Maybe. You know what else? And I'd love Trev's take on it. I'd love Trev's take on the all whites because he was there for some of the all white missteps. Yeah, the Avoid the Noid throwback tribute to the Domino's Pizza. Those were the worst uniforms ever. The throwback unis for Wisconsin and Nebraska when Nebraska beat Wisconsin.
The old Scrabble uniforms?
The time they beat Wisconsin in the Big Ten. So recruiting's been huge. A commit earlier today, Kewan Lacey, really talented running back out of Lancaster, Texas, 6 foot, almost 2 bills. Nebraska going back to Texas. And depending on how that running back room goes after this year, you'll see if Nebraska adds another commit or goes shopping again. But I think this could be it. I think they like Lacey enough, Elijah, that they're good. They're good with their 2024 running back. They're good with a guy that goes 10-7-9 in the 100-meter. They're good with a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, but also is a speed demon. And you want a combination with your running game. You want power, you want speed, you also want elusiveness, but it comes down to mentality, doesn't it? You want a running back that can run through some traffic and also seeks out contact. High school film-wise, Lacey's a guy, and I don't have a great comparison for him. All I know is he runs into contact out of a one-back shotgun offense and does a nice job, and then he jumps to a higher gear as he makes his way through the defense with that home run ability, with that God-given speed. But he's not dodging people. He's not going Mo Washington in the box, so to speak, between the tackles. He's not calling an audible and trying to outrun everybody around the edge. Lacey's a guy that loves running between the tackles, and then once he gets by the line, can stick his foot in the ground and then take off. Pretty impressive list to where Nebraska's at with who they competed against and then beat for the commitment. I mean, we're talking Baylor and TCU from the Big 12 And going into this, a lot of the national recruiting analysts and some of the local guys also had Ole Miss as the team. And credit Nebraska and Coach Barthol and the peer recruiting, just the impression that was made this weekend on Lacey to get him not only to flip his lean from Ole Miss, but to verbally commit to Nebraska, making that announcement earlier.
And it's the push from Coach Barthel. You've heard really, really good things about Coach Barthel coming out of recruiting, coming out of the summer workouts thus far. I think you see some of that right now. And whenever you look at Lacey, does he not kind of strike you as one of those do-it-all backs?
Yeah, that's what you want.
The prototypical Big Ten backs. Are they going to kill you with speed? No. Are they going to kill you with power? No.
They've got enough speed to.
But then that's where I'm going with it. They have enough power to be okay in the Big Ten. They have enough speed to be okay in the Big Ten. They're not going to kill you with each, but they're a bit of a jack of all trades, and that's kind of how he strikes me. Is just a do-it-all running back. If you need him to go inside the tackles, he can go inside the tackles. If you need him to go outside, he can cut one outside and use some speed to get upfield, get 20 yards. Almost similar to what we saw from Anthony Grant last season.
Mm-hmm,
Not as developed as Anthony Grant is at the moment, but I see them kind of the same. Where was Anthony Grant going to beat anyone in the field last year with pure speed? Probably not.
But he had enough to finish the job.
He had enough to finish the job, and it's the same with his power. Did he have enough that he could go Tommy Frazier and run over 4 defenders en route to the end zone? Also probably not. But did he have enough to go truck a kid against Rutgers down the sideline? Yes, he did. Anthony Grant is kind of what I see as that do-it-all back, and I think whenever you look at the Husker backfield next year, then you have that Gabe Irvin type that can come in on third down, kind of what we dreamed of Jaquez Yant being, that guy who can come in on third down and be a bruiser and get 2 yards when you need it. I don't think Lacey's going to be that guy, but I see him as being more like that Anthony Grant where, you know what, whatever you ask him to do, he can do. And maybe even you can send him out in a route. I know he's got some passes in his huddle highlight tape where he takes them upfield and makes a couple guys miss and takes it for a touchdown. Maybe he can add that to his game a little bit more as well and just be one of those guys that you can rely upon all 3 downs to do what needs to be done.
Well, and he's bigger than Ramir Johnson, but what I love about Ramir is his speed, his ability to catch out of the backfield. But you know how tough Ramir runs between the tackles. And that's what I like in this kid's high school film, too. And really good vision and patience as well, but really likes to get downhill. So you do have an announcement from Carter Nelson. Not that announcement, but at least a date. And Elijah, the number 1 player in the state, number 2 tight end in the country, 6'4", 215 out of Ainsworth. He's going to make his decision on Wednesday, the 28th.
And this from reading the tea leaves, feels like it's got to be Nebraska, right?
You would think so.
And I don't want to take away from the kid, but just like you look at everything, you look at what recruits are tweeting, you look at what he's tweeting, you look at just what the reports are coming out there from those who claim to be in the know in recruiting. All signs seem to be pointing to Nebraska here, and I think you can also just look at the timing of when this is coming down. Oh, you just finished up your official visit at Nebraska, and 3 days later you're going to be picking your place to go. Could that have been a sign Nebraska wasn't the place? Maybe. Whenever you combine it with what other recruits are saying on Twitter, what he's posting up on Twitter, it just feels like all signs are pointing to Nebraska, especially whenever you have Darren Flint, coach of Ian Flint, a guy we mentioned on our Saturday morning show, posting up a picture with the two of them saying the next tight end duo in the country. I'm paraphrasing for him, but like it just feels...
You're really good at interpreting social media postings. You're well versed at that.
I've been doing it since I was a child, which
is great.
That speaks to society as a whole just a little bit.
Back to the old guy take here, but no. And I think a guy that's been wonderful has been Danny Kalin, not only with his high school teammates, but also with the amount of work he's put in with a guy like Carter Nelson. There are still some big gets out there for Nebraska. And time will tell. You just wonder what's the timeline look like for Bricks, the offensive lineman out of Iowa, because I think he's a guy Nebraska really likes, and there's strong competition for him. But I think Nebraska made a great impression this weekend with him.
And I don't think you need to have Grant Bricks in the boat to consider this a successful
I don't think
weekend.
That's not what I'm saying, but yeah, you're right.
I mean, I legitimately look at this as being a case of Nebraska could pick up 3 or 4 kids from this official visit weekend before July 1st even happens. Whenever you look at Carter Nelson, Lacey's already in the boat. There's some other guys that apparently, from what we're hearing out of the visit weekend, had a really great time at Nebraska. Like, 3 to 4 recruits gets Nebraska over that 20 mark in their recruiting class before July 1st, which, at least in my era of following Husker football, would be unheard of.
It's big.
I can't think of a time off the top of my head Nebraska had 20 kids in the boat before the 4th of July.
No, and it's not been a struggle. There's been some patience. There's been a lot of analysis. There's been invites. There's been in-person evaluation. And then there's been the offer. Do we like this kid? Is he a fit? Does he have the right mentality? Here's what we see for him. What does he see in us? And then, all right, we like each other, so let's commit. And you move forward. So kudos to Nebraska's class. And the thing to be patient with now is to see the payoff. You're getting the yes on a lot of these kids. Sometimes they're heavily recruited. Sometimes Nebraska's out there leading with their chin on them. And kids will get offers from some high-profile schools. Once Nebraska offers, that Nebraska effect has been very real. Some more thoughts on Grand Bricks and the Husker weekend on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, big recruiting weekend. How's it feel for Nebraska? Is Carter Nelson set to make his call on Wednesday? What's the timeline for Grant Bricks out of Iowa, just north of Council Bluffs, a ways north of Council Bluffs? But we started off with me whining about the all-white uniforms and voices of reason in logic with Brady Oltmans via a text message. Old man. To me, and Elijah's like, yeah, you're old, Schmidt. It's all right.
Well, do you want to see, just not to reset this too much, but how do you feel about alternate uniforms as a whole?
I just go win games that are important.
See, and I kind of feel
and
this,
I don't cheer.
I feel the
cheer.
same now.
I mean, the fan hat's been off, right? I work. We want an interesting game. We want stuff to discuss. We don't sit and cheer. It's a hell of a lot cooler covering a team when they win. Mm-hmm. Okay? Versus the incessant drama of commits, decommits, firings, hirings, administrative changes. I mean, we're going down the list of 20 years that's been draining. And that's just from a professional standpoint. I'm not whining. I love this. I love what I do. But I'm saying from a fan base, you've seen them try and dust themselves up, and they're not even playing. The kids that are playing, think about this. You want to come play for a winner, and it's just this vicious cycle that hasn't ended. Or there's a little bit, but you don't quite get over the hill.
Well, and I'm with you on that, and maybe it's because working in this profession, I kind of feel the same way. Like, it's a hell of a lot more fun to cover a team that's winning than a team that's losing.
The first half of 2016 was kind of fun.
It's as simple as that. But then I look back, like, why did I care so much more as a 15-year-old about Nebraska's alternate uniforms than I do now? Is it because that was a societal college football fad that's gone away? Or have I just gotten older and now I don't care?
Oregon warped everybody, man. I mean, Oregon and their wardrobe warped everybody. And to Oregon's credit, they had to be, all right, they had the offense and the tempo thing with Chip. Fine, cool, great, whatever. But then, all right, we're Oregon and it's Uncle Phil and Nike, so let's be different and wild. And then, they're unique and cool looking, and they're winning. Yeah, so otherwise, if Oregon was going 6-6, no one would have gave a damn.
That's true. I will say on the alternate uniform discussion, Nebraska needs to pull those black shirt uniforms out of the closet again. Those ones from 2018 that they wore once and never wore again.
Against Northwestern.
Was it Northwestern?
They played Northwestern, and then they also got beat by UCLA in the All Black.
Yeah, that one barely counts. I'm talking like the new All Black.
Oh, that one barely counts. Okay.
That one I'd like to see pulled out of the closet again because the black shirts that's fully ingrained within Nebraska. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see them pull that one out. It's classic enough that it's not too drastic a change for my eyes, but at the same time, it's cool. Gives a little change of pace.
We'll ask Uncle Charlie here coming up in a half hour his take because he was part of some of the all whites and the all red discussion, and He just wanted somebody to force a fumble and make a tackle. That's all he cared about. Grant Brix, he's been to Lincoln 4 times, took his official, and Big Teddy was his player host. And you look at his response, and he was really impressed. He got a chance to talk with Coach Campbell about the strength and conditioning side. You had Satterfield that was a part of the meetings that was impressive, not just from Satterfield's also understanding the unison part of being well-versed in the offensive line with your offensive line coach, but just that peer aspect we've already hit on a little bit with Daniel Kalin and Carter Nelson, Ashton Murphy, Ian Flint, Gibson Pyle. They were all there. So they all had a chance to spend time and kind of further develop the relationship. Then Gunnar Gatula, Teddy Prohaska, and Henry Lutoski were there as well, really pumping up the new staff. And that's big. And how are you going to fit into this pro style? Nebraska wants to be able to throw the ball and throw it well. But they also want to be able to run it and run it at a high level. So that screams balance. And Elijah, that screams being able to be good at 2 things on offense, which is really impressive. And now it's time to take the emotion out of it and just do some math here. If you're Mr. Brix, 6'5", 288, and he has so many different suitors that he can go wherever the hell he wants and do well. He's one of these gets, if you're Nebraska, that would be extremely impressive, and it's along the lines of trying to dethrone Kansas State. And what K-State's been, what they've been with Coach Kleiman, Oklahoma is right there. I think they're probably a little behind Nebraska. You have Iowa State. Alabama's shown some interest. So, I mean, it's this kid's really well thought of. Iowa, Minnesota, Kansas, Wisconsin, Illinois, Notre Dame, Penn State. I mean, some who's who programs like him, but at least Nebraska's in the running, and I think they're a strong voice in this running.
And whenever I think about Nebraska's recruiting, I'm going to zoom out and not only talk about 2024, but 2023 as well. I look at the kids they've picked up, and the one area of concern I still have moving forward is the offensive line. That's not having yet seen the development of the guys from the class of 2023. But like we all know from watching Nebraska for the past couple of years that Nebraska needs offensive line help sooner rather than later. In terms of importance on the team, I think the area where they need the help now is offensive line. And what they pick up last recruiting class. We got to see Gunnar Gatula in the spring game. He looks like a guy that might be starting further ahead of the curve than we even thought whenever he showed up on campus. He's got the size, 6'6", should be 300 pounds by the time fall camp rolls around this fall. Like that's a guy that could help you out, maybe not as a starter, but on your 2 deep or maybe on your 3 deep. He's pretty much going to be on the 3 deep.
And you're comfortable enough with him in that role.
Yes. That there's one guy that you've added to the mix. We don't know all that much about the other offensive linemen they've picked up. Sam Sledge is a guy that we haven't seen really at all, as well as Mason Goldman from Gretna, 2 guys that I think need a lot of work on their body before they're going to be Big Ten ready. So you look at one last class, and then you have this class now. Just picked up Landon Davison, who I think is a really good pickup for being a 3-star out of Colorado. His body is, I think, closer to being ready for Big Ten football than the guys I listed in the class of 2023. You have Gibson Pyle, another guy I know a little bit about. He was the early offensive line commit from back in April. And then you don't really have much still. Ashton Murphy, I think we're expecting him to make the move over to the defensive side of the ball once he finally makes it to campus in 2024. Like, when you talk about the offensive line being the biggest position of need on this football team right now, I don't think the recruiting pickups that Nebraska has gotten over last year and now upcoming in class of 2024 are enough that you necessarily feel comfortable about that just yet. So I worry about Nebraska just saying, you know what, Grant Brix is our guy. Like, we're going to pick him up. We're going to be fine on the offensive line. Because Nebraska's up to soon-to-be 20 commits in this class of 2024. How much more space do you have? Are you assuming you're going to go transfer portal after next season to go fix some of your offensive line woes? That was the place that Matt Rhule circled as being like, we need more depth along the offensive line. And I don't think we've heard all that much about the offensive line recruiting thus far in the classes of 2023 and 2024. So what else is Nebraska going to bring in aside from Grant Brix if Grant Brix decides he's going to be in? I think he's a very worthwhile pickup. I love the way he fires off the ball. I think his run blocking is going to translate very well to the Big Ten, but what else does Nebraska have there? Because I don't know Nebraska has a starting 5 offensive line for 3 years down the road once you get some development, once you get some more muscle mass on these guys.
Here's what I'm excited about in this offensive line process. You've got Scott, okay, you're going to pencil in at center. You still got time, presumably a couple of years with Turner and Benhart. You've seen some spot duty by Lutoski. Mm-hmm. You've got Piper. And these kids all have been in the program a while, but it's not completely end of the road yet. So you still have time with them to get better. I do believe Matt Rhule, when he talks about some of the walk-on kids that we've not heard of or focused on, that they maybe have hit some home runs. And what I mean by that is you've got some kids that were under the radar that have been doing the right things and you think maybe can play or help you out or develop into a starter. Think about Spencer Long or Choi specifically, where those are two guys that were really, really good and really, really talented, specifically Spencer. But even Choi, I mean, think of finding that guy or two on an offensive line that can just do his time, get better, and then you got a year or maybe 2 with him. Maybe there's some of that can be ready to go by the time the Benharts and Corcorans and Scotts and Lutoskis are gone. Mm-hmm. And we haven't even talked about Big Teddy. He's got to stay healthy, but Teddy's got a lot of football left as well.
And this could also be the evidence that Matt Rhule wasn't joking around when he said, I don't think that this offensive line group, the concern around them, I'm paraphrasing for him here, is what the fans believe it to be. Like, I'm confident in this offensive line and what they can be moving forward. Maybe this is the evidence we need, because I look at this as being like who's going to help out Nebraska on the offensive line in 2024, even 2025, because you think guys that come into a Big Ten football program, they need a couple of years in the lines of scrimmage.
That's very fair.
You can't microwave that development. So you can look at this 2 ways. One, does Nebraska feel really good about what they have now? Or on the flip side, are they saying to themselves, man, we're going to have to hit the portal really, really hard after this 2023 football season to get our offensive line up to snuff? Because I don't think it's the in-between there of, oh, we feel good now and we feel good later. The guys Nebraska's been going after in the offensive line and the quantity of guys after we heard this offseason, like, well, man, they almost couldn't have a spring game because they didn't have enough offensive linemen. We haven't seen a concerted effort to get more offensive linemen here in the recruiting classes than I would have expected after hearing that and seeing that. So I just wonder which side of the coin that means. Does it mean Nebraska's really comfortable about where they're at, or does that mean, man, we're going to go explore other options to go improve our offensive line down the road?
I think they're not panicking. I think they like their room, and I think they're confident. I think they're confident between all the sets of eyes, not only with Raiola, but Rhule's background, Coach Satterfield, and Coach Foley. I mean, all those guys have background in O-line play, so there's a lot of cooks there. But instead of being too many cooks, I think it could be more so on you got a lot of chances to make a good meal with helping develop and further that room to contribute, because you've been stuck. You've been stuck with, all right, who's our 5 or 6, and then for whatever reason, injury, graduation, NFL, I'm thinking Hymas specifically, Juergens as well, going off, and good for him. You've had to have guys ready to step in, and it's not always been advantageous. They've not been ready. It's probably hard enough to have that first year as, all right, been in the program, great, now I got to be a first-year starter. By about game 4 to 6, you hopefully find your sea legs, get better, finish confidently. That's easier said than done. So that's where things are at with another big target on the offensive line. Where's Nebraska rank on Iowa's schedule? Scott Dochterman weighs in. Coach McBride on the way. Jay Moore, the Black Shirt Hour, after 5.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Hope you're doing all right. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Big time ball game tonight in Omaha. CWS, the championship. LSU and Florida, the third round of that here in the postseason. We enjoyed our time up at Zipline all last week. So that was just a treat to be a part of. once again being involved in the College World Series and being just a hop, skip, and a jump from Charles Schwab Field. Numbers to get in, 489-1240. We get to some emails here, Chris at HaleVarsity.com. You got a question for Coach McBride? Can absolutely jump in the stream, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel or Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio and ask Charlie, or send an email question if you want to ask Charlie. We'll get into the alternate uniform discussion with him. And this just all spurns from the tweet out by our dear friend Brady Oltmans of HaleVarsity.com and magazine saying, look, there's so many recruits on social media in the all whites or the all reds. And you saw, what was it, Kalen tweeted out a picture with his two high school teammates, and you have him on a knee calling a play.
Let's not forget Carter Nelson's in that picture.
Oh, I know he is. I know Carter Nelson's in that picture. He makes his announcement on Wednesday officially. So Nebraska able to land Kejuan Lacey as well, running back for 2024. So Scott Dochterman, friend of the show, really talented writer, covers the Hawkeyes, has covered the Hawkeyes for years. Also a good voice for the Big Ten with The Athletic.
Also, let's not forget here, he's been in somewhat of an open feud with Husker fans on Twitter over the past month or so.
Little bit.
And I've said it on Twitter before. Like, I respect the hell out of Scott. This is not a pile on Scott segment, because I think he's one of the best out there covering Big Ten football right now. But released a list today, which is a little suspect.
No, I think you can look at record and absolutely be okay with it. But you can't take the emotion out of it if you're an Iowa fan, where you had a chance to go back to Indy. It had been their third time in the Big Ten championship game era. And Mickey and crew roll in with 3 wins on the season and pretty much smack you around for 3 quarters and then hang on and celebrate like Iowa's done, because it's not been that long ago where you got field goal kickers blowing kisses to Memorial Stadium.
Caleb Duncan.
Right. And it's been tooth and nail for Nebraska into Iowa. I mean, they've been great ball games. Nebraska's just been on the wrong side of it. And there's been some teams that have been pretty talented for Iowa. There's been some less either talented or locked-in teams for Nebraska. But there was a case in point during the Riley era where Iowa just beat the piss out of Nebraska, physically smoked them. And that's what makes you sick. The scoreboard's one thing, but to get physically dominated is the greatest fear for a ton of Nebraska fans, and I totally get it. So Scott ranks his opponents for the 2023 schedule from Western Michigan to Penn State. So Western Michigan comes in at 12, Rutgers 11, Utah State 10, Sparty 9. 8 is Nebraska. Too high, too low, just right. And Scott's write-up says this: the Huskers snapped Iowa's 7-game series win streak. Think about that. Kenny Bell from Tommy Armstrong in overtime. Thank you, DeMornay Pearson-L, for the Superman act in that fourth quarter. So that kept the Hawkeyes from consecutive trips to Indy. Nebraska's been on their 4th head coach since joining the Big Ten. And you have a ton of attrition there. It's difficult to know whether the Huskers are better off without the 25 or so portal exits, or if they'll take a step backward. This game matters, and once the results become of equal importance to both sides, it'll reach fever pitch. So it's on a burner. We just don't know what temperature the burner's on. I think it's gone from low or simmer to close to boil. And last year helped with that. It's always helped when you have an AD shooting his mouth off about considering where Iowa's at after he whacks Bo. And then you go 7 straight backhands by Iowa, where they were the more physical team, even though the scores might have been 1 score. So, no, I think it's probably too low, but that's the emotional point. From a record standpoint, there's other teams that are higher on the food chain. Nebraska, I should say Northwestern and Iowa have a heated rivalry. In-state rivalries, Iowa State, that's 5th on the list. Illinois, mean, that was a dogfight. Plus the Bielema factor, an former Iowa player and assistant, the pig farmer. I mean, there's a lot of guys in Iowa City and in the state of Iowa that want him as a head coach now. Want him out of Illinois. Minnesota's there because it's always kind of fun to beat Fleck, but Minnesota's been really good. Wisconsin's always going to be a big dog. And then Penn State's your statement game because, listen, you haven't beat them. You've done okay. You've held your own in regular season games against the East Powers. But Penn State's, I mean, as good as their defense is supposed to be, if you're Iowa, you go get that game. It's at Beaver Stadium, so I don't know about that. A night game on CBS, good luck and God bless during a whiteout.
But just take us through here. The two schools directly ahead of Nebraska on this list, Schmitty. The two schools directly ahead of Nebraska that Scott Dochterman says, yeah, for Iowa football, these games are bigger as we look at the season looking ahead.
Purdue and Northwestern.
Yeah.
Northwestern has been, and Barney's laid it out for us. Northwestern called out Iowa, like Colorado called out Nebraska. That's been their rivalry. Mm-hmm. Iowa recruits Chicago. Mm-hmm. Probably doesn't say a lot of nice things about Northwestern you could maybe read into. As far as Purdue, I mean, Purdue and Iowa doesn't sound or seem that sexy, but they've been really pretty good ball games. And didn't Purdue go drill Iowa when they were number 2 in the country a couple years back?
Was that the same year they beat Ohio State? That same Purdue team?
Maybe. I don't think. I think it was a different Purdue team. You just had a highly, highly ranked Purdue Iowa squad just get embarrassed at home in Kinnick by a so-so.
Oh, that was junior year Aiden O'Connell, wasn't it?
Might have been.
Yeah.
Iowa remembered it, brother, because they won 24-3 last year against Purdue.
I just don't know how you can say, yeah, Nebraska took away our chance to go to the Big Ten championship game last year, and we're going to put them at 8th. They're the 8th most important game on the schedule next year. Like, realistically.
You had 2021 where number 2 Iowa at home, that they were just going to go kind of stomp Purdue, and Purdue goes in and rolls them.
Well, am I crazy here, though, that, like, what could be on the line, Nebraska, Iowa? This is way off, and it's a big what if. But if Nebraska,
give me a big what if.
If Nebraska is good enough to beat Minnesota week 1, could you not see Iowa, Nebraska being for the Big Ten West crown at the end of November?
It's supposed to be.
It depends what Wisconsin looks like in year 1.
It's supposed to be in the conversation year in, year out.
If Nebraska is good enough to beat a Minnesota squad week 1 that returns a lot of talent, I think then that Nebraska squad should be good enough to at least compete for a Big Ten West crown. I don't think that's crazy to say. I think it's a bigger if to say if Nebraska beats Minnesota. That's unlikely in my book right now. That's a giant ask. But if Nebraska can pull that off in the first game under Matt Rhule,
you assume they get better as the year goes on.
You think Black Friday could be for the Big Ten West crown?
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be. I mean, you got that death triangle of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska. I mean, that's what it's supposed to have been year in, year out. We'll wind down hour 1 on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Reminder to buckle up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. Prevents injuries only if properly worn. Buckle up. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Z-Guy chimes in on the Purdue discussion point to Elijah's point about, all right, why is Purdue ranked in front of Nebraska from a most important games list from our friend Scott Dochterman from The Athletic, who covers Iowa. And Z-Guy's not wrong at all. Good point here. Purdue lost O'Connell. O'Connell's going to make an NFL roster. Really good story. Brom's a hell of a quarterback coach. If you can't get better under him, he will run you off or threaten you. I'm joking, of course. But that's a good point here. I mean, what's Purdue going to have at quarterback? You've got a new coach coaching for the first time at Purdue that left Illinois. And you know what? I think that's a good point about O'Connell being a difference. Iowa's been a nightmare at quarterback. Good luck recruiting a quarterback to go play, despite your O-line coming back and a good running back coming back. They have been a mess with Baby Ferentz there. Coaching quarterbacks, running the offense. Go back to O-line, dude, and just do it that way. okay? Because I don't know that Padilla or Padilla or however he says it, or, does he screw
McNamara?
Yeah, does he screw up McNamara, who's gone to a playoff?
Well, I mean, McNamara wasn't the one who led Michigan to a playoff, if we're being honest. It was that defense and that running game.
He didn't hurt him.
Well, he almost lost that game to Nebraska.
Yeah, he threw a bad pick, but he also beat Ohio State.
He beat Ohio State by handing that ball off. Damn, did he hand that ball off well that
On
game.
3rd and 8, he could check it down for 9.
And I'm not sitting here trying to disparage. I think he's probably a great fit for this Iowa.
And they got the tight end.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably a great fit for what Iowa wants to do. Iowa went and got some monsters on the offensive line, not to make this an Iowa football show. They got some great offensive linemen in the transfer portal.
Traffic is dropping, Elijah. Let's get off of the Iowa line.
I think Brian Ferentz, he's going to be able to keep it simple for his offense next year, and he's probably going to have a lot better results than he did last year based on what they brought in. I don't think they're going to change what they are schematically, but I think they changed what they are from a talent perspective on that offense. I don't think if you're expecting Iowa to have the same anemic offense this next year they had last year because, they kept Brian Ferentz around, it's not as simple as that. Iowa is going to learn from their mistakes.
They just missed on a couple of quarterbacks. Their running backs weren't what they used to be.
And
I think Ferentz is not a good offensive coordinator or quarterbacks coach.
Well,
he's a better O-line coach.
I think he's a guy that wants to keep it simple offensively, and I don't think Iowa had the pieces to keep it simple offensively last year, and they kind of screwed over their defense, who kept them in a lot of football games.
They were generationally awesome, where they're allowing less than 10 points a game in this offensive era, yet they're winning rock fights 9-6 against the pig farmer, who also had quite a few NFL draft picks in that back 7. So we'll talk all things football with Charlie McBride, get his thoughts on some of the recruiting, also thoughts on the alternate uniforms that we launched into the all-whites. Do you love them? Do you hate them? Are you in the superstition realm that I'm in, where you don't want to see all whites? It isn't about me, I understand that. But Husker fans of a certain age freak when it's all whites.
And Schmidt, next hour we also need to get into our predictions for tonight's game.
Yes, steak and a beer.
LSU news just coming out. Skeen's unavailable for LSU tonight. He will not be able to take the mount.
That's no good. But those Bayou Bengals, don't count them out. Hour 2 coming up.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you at Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. And you take a quick break, and here's another commit for Nebraska's 2024 class. News coming out. Brady Oltman's with it on HailVarsity.com. You have Rex Guthrie, as he is the 6th defensive back for the 2024 class. Guthrie is out of Littleton, Colorado, and you've got Gradney and Buford and Evan Taylor and Braylon Prude, and then just last weekend, you had Donovan Jones also committing. So commit number 6, we're efforting Coach McBride. I know there's some storms that have gone through the Michigan region, so we'll just see if Coach calls back, and be great to spend some time with him. But Jay Moore is with us here in about 15 minutes as well.
And gotta love that Nebraska football, in our time of need, gets another commit for us to talk about.
Time of need for Elijah means it's the frickin' summertime. Right?
Just in terms of not much to talk about?
Oh, no, exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean,
there's always something to talk about, or you make something up.
That's the thing. I've been doing this job now for... I think I'm over 4 years now. I'm just over 4 years.
Been doing time is what your thought bubble says. Been doing time with Schmidt for 4.5 years.
Well, what's the old saying? You need to get, is it 10,000 hours doing something to become an expert at it?
I'm still working on it, man.
I'm putting in my 10,000 hours here. So advice to your people at home. 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. Until you reach that point, you have not reached your
Just
upper
don't
limit.
listen too closely.
But anyway, if there's anything I have learned over 4 years of doing this job, is there is never, ever, ever a quote-unquote slow week.
Nope.
There's weeks that are slower than others, but damn, there's always something to talk about. There's always something coming out. And like with years prior, it was always like, oh, our head coach said something at a press conference that has got the whole country in a firestorm mode. So let's talk about that. This year it's been recruiting. There's been so much recruiting for us to hit over the past month. And like you look at next week, whenever it's a dead-ish period for the Husker football coaching staff. I know they're getting the week off for the 4th of July. I guarantee there's still going to be something to talk about.
Yeah,
Funny how that works.
We'll get it figured out. Rex Guthrie, again, out of Colorado. This guy's testing impressed. First and foremost, what does Nebraska want? What do they covet? Silence of the Lambs love their speed. Here is what Nebraska wants. 4.43 40 kid. And I think there was some buzz on Rex with his camp in Wyoming. And then Guthrie is part of that visit weekend in the middle part of June, just a couple of weeks ago, June 15th, a little less than a couple of weeks ago. So stop me if you've heard this before in this short time period of Matt Rhule and his staff. Oh, why don't you come camping? Why don't we test you? Oh, we like what we see testing-wise. We think you're a fit. We think you think we're a fit. How about we offer you? And then there you go. And let's be honest. Nebraska is all about transparency. So, hey, we're going to tell a kid, Daniel Kalen, for example, you're number 2 on our board, but we love you. And if things don't work out with where we want to go at quarterback, hey, it's okay to keep this door open and the lines of communication open. That's what happened at quarterback. You also have kids that need to make a decision. And because there's offers out there, they're going after a similar skill set. You need to be athletic. You need to have toughness, but you got to be fast. And, with this 3-3-5, Nebraska is going to go get guys that can play safety, that can play corner, that can play outside backer, and they're going to project. Some guys are going to be able to maybe put on some weight and be that hybrid defender. Remember Isaiah Simmons? Kid that was out of...
How could you forget?
Right? Kid that was sought after by Nebraska, and I think he's doing all right for the Cardinals. He was a first-round pick, a top 12 pick.
Well, it's interesting you bring him up because he's going through a position change this offseason.
Aha.
They moved him from linebacker back to safety.
Okay.
So,
and some guys are better at that. Look at Roy Williams back in the day for Oklahoma. The safety Roy Williams that made 1 billion Pro Bowls for Dallas and Cincy. Mike Brown, your rover at Nebraska that was a really good in-the-box safety for those really high-level Urlacher, Mike Brown-led Bears defenses. I mean, you got to have that hybrid in you. Can you handle yourself against the run in college football, but be athletic enough in space and fast enough to cover and make up ground? And the visit went well. He spent time with players. He spent time with coaches. And he wanted to spend more time with coaches. Did so, 61205. And, Coach Cooper and Coach White, the whole defensive staff really said, wow. The culture said, wow, to Guthrie. And Nebraska's got their 6th defensive back in the mix here for 2024. Some of those defensive backs, being called defensive backs, they're going to change positions. And I think of the Giffords. I think of how talented they were in high school, and I think of how talented Luke was at Nebraska and what he's doing in the NFL. I think of Isaac and what the future holds for him at Nebraska. Those guys that can put some weight on, but that are still twitchy and fluid and can get downhill and hit you and still kind of keep their speed. That's the thing. I have no earthly idea how you can be right, but that's why they're paid what they're paid, and that's why they're at the level they're at. Can you be right with adding some weight, keeping your speed, and bulking up for the next level. This sounds so much like Nebraska's shift, what they used, what they did, and Coach McBride's detailed a lot over the years, where they pretty much used their nickel defense to be their new 4-3. They could stop the run with what they had, moving the Jamel Williams of the world or the Terrell Farleys of the world, the guys that could play safety, up to an outside linebacker spot. You got your tough dude, your one linebacker in the middle. You've got a couple of BAs in the middle to stop the run, and your outside backers move to defensive end. Your defensive ends move to 3 techniques. You move from outside in with that defense, and you just fly around, and you're tougher than who you're playing, and you're going to be good defensively because stopping the run's a mentality on top of a physicality portion.
Yeah, and do I know what position these guys are going to end up at Nebraska? No, not necessarily. The coaching staff probably has a good idea of where they think they project. But like this weekend, and especially a guy like Rex Guthrie, completely fits that mold of we don't necessarily care what you look like. We don't care where you come from. Like, we think you're a good football player, and that gets backed up by the measurables that we've taken or you have put on in a track and field competition, what have you. That's what Matt Rhule said. Like, I trust my eyes, but I trust numbers a hell of a lot more. And whenever I see a guy that looks like a football player and it's backed up by numbers, I don't care what your stars are. I don't care what you look like. Don't care where you're from. I think we can turn you into a damn good football player. And he has a good track record of doing that. And let's just to address the elephant in the room here for just a second. Like, just being 100% real, Nebraska has 2 white defensive backs in this recruiting class. And not
that's your elephant, not mine.
Well, not to like pull the race card or anything, but look at the stigma in football right now around white defensive backs. Like, every time there's a white defensive back draft in the NFL, somebody's going to tweet about it. Somebody's going to mention it. Somebody's going to say, I mean, remember at the Combine, speaking of all we've spent the time this summer talking about Coach Prime, he was on the Combine broadcast for that defensive back out of Penn State and said, oh, that kid can run. And Rich Eisen's like, what do you mean by that? And Deion's like, you know what I mean by that. Like
the surprise in his voice.
There's a very real stigma. And if you can go get yourself a steal because there's other coaches around the country that say, white defensive backs not in 2023, that's to Matt Rhule's benefit. And like, it's been to Iowa's benefit in the past couple seasons. Like, let's be 100% real here. You have Cooper DeJean in that backfield, and then you also have the guy that got drafted by the Broncos. I should know his name.
Well, Greenway was the Iowa kid that played a lot of years in the NFL.
Yeah.
So, but
right or wrong, there is a stigma there, and if Nebraska can take advantage,
you know what? Nebraska's going to look at a kid like Guthrie, say, "There's 3 spots we need you to play at safety. We'll figure out where. We have an idea." And with Coach Cooper, he's your master evaluator. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's big time, and he doesn't care about rankings. You can have a ton of rankings that's verified up close and personal. And it's also verified by your testing, but your testing can trump any stars or lack thereof of stars. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Are you going to be first and be right more times than not? And it's, if you're 50-50, you're doing a hell of a good job. Okay. So why does this kid have just 3 stars? On3 has him as 3 stars. He's the 10th best prospect in the state of Colorado. No stars for 24/7, no stars for ESPN, no stars for Rivals. But the proof was in the testing. The proof was in the front and center evaluation by Nebraska staff. Are you right on these kids? And that's going to be a 2 years down the road finish line. But right now, Nebraska sees what they like. They've given the offer. That offer's been accepted by Rex Guthrie, and he is commit number 19 for Nebraska.
I said in first hour Nebraska's going to get to 20 before July 1st. They might get to 20 before the end of the show.
The way it's going, and it's the dead period, so now it's time to make the call. Nebraska was very impressed with Guthrie's junior film. They say active, and that's pretty good.
His junior season, 106 tackles.
Sweet.
Along with 6 tackles for loss from the safety position, 3 interceptions and 1 forced fumble. Also was their returner for this football team as well.
imagine the years Nebraska was cleaning up defensively. What type of downhill effect defensively did a guy like Nate Gary have? Nate Gary was another linebacker. I know he started out at linebacker, but he was a safety. His athleticism and ability to be fast was huge. And I know that Gary, I mean, he's got a Super Bowl ring and he's still earning the check in the NFL. I look at some of the years where I look at Tony Veland. Tony Veland made the position switch and was back there at safety for Nebraska's first national championship. Tony Veland, just an incredible athlete and a tough dude. Nate Gary, a fast, tough dude. You need this guy. I mean, look, the numbers you put out there, 100-plus tackles, and it's not like usually you don't want your safety to be your leading tackler. That's okay in some defenses if the guy's coming downhill as a third safety in that box to be an extra run defender. If he's able to come in and make TFLs, force fumbles, really blow up things, that's what White's defense is all about. You may get 4 or 5 on first down. You're going to lose 2 on second, and you're back at 3rd and 8. Have fun.
Well, like, look at just football in general. Offensive schemes, you have on run plays, usually 9 guys who are blocking, 2 guys who are not. One of them is the quarterback. He's handing the ball off. That's why we talk about the importance of quarterback run, because if you have to account for that quarterback, that's now 10 guys you have to account for in a running game instead of 9. If you don't have to account for the quarterback, okay. You have an extra defender there, and then you have an extra defender on the running back who is carrying the football. So 9 guys are blocking, 2 guys are not. If you get a hat on a hat in football, plays for the most part are designed so that if everything goes to plan, there is 2 players on the defense who go unblocked and are going to be the safety valves for the defense. Why they're called the safeties. Because 2 guys are going to be unblocked. If a guy is able to be a safety, and you know what? The offense just executed a play perfectly. They got a hat on a hat. The hole opens up. We have 9 guys blocking 9 on defense. It's okay if your safety's up making tackles, especially at the high school level. Like in college football, is it great for you? No, that usually means the running back's getting 8 to 12 yards a pop before you're making a tackle.
3rd level.
Is it necessarily great for a high school defense? No, probably not, but it's a good sign in recruiting if your safety that you've recruited is up, coming up, making plays, making tackles, picking up the slack of the rest of the defense. And, like, hey, it's the simple matter of the fact is in the Big Ten, there's going to be teams, you look at Wisconsin, you look at Iowa, you look at Michigan, they're pretty damn good at getting a hat on a hat and getting 9 guys blocked up, leaving 2 free. I'd like to have a safety that can come down and stop Melvin Gordon before he goes for 70 yards. Some guy who can make a tackle on the sideline. Some guy who can come up and stop a run play at 7 yards as opposed to 20. It's important to have. You might not like it in football, but it's going to happen.
You need it, okay? You need it, and you got to be a sure tackler. And it also helps if you have, dare I say, 3 guys around the football. So it's a gang tackle type deal versus just that one-on-one hell that was the rerun of the Big Ten championship game, where it's a one-on-one situation and a guy like Melvin with 4.3 speed makes a move and good night, Irene. So you know what's your theme defensively? Good write-up on Guthrie. Check that out, HailVarsity.com. Get the subscription, get the magazine, get the digital, bundle it all. You'll love it, and can check her out. HailVarsity.com/offer. Get the podcast. It is free to subscribe to the whole show or the segments you want to hear. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with Hail Varsity Radio. Blackshirt Hour continues. Talk some recruiting. Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. He's on the way with Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity Radio. The Blackshirt Hour continues. Blackshirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore back with us at JMoore44 on Twitter. You find him, of course, also on Big Red Wrap-Up, co-hosting that. Jay, what a recruiting weekend. I think the good vibes are real. We'll see how it pans out for Nebraska the rest of this week and throughout the dead period with some commitments, but looks like Nebraska got their running back for 2024 and Kewan Lacey. I want your general perspective because you were a guy that was highly rated in state, but also you were part of classes where you were one of the higher recruiting gets. Then you also saw the John Blake Callahan years too, where here's Marlon, here's Sue. What's your read on this? Are you pumping the brakes on, okay, Nebraska's the first to offer and maybe the only name to offer some of these kids? Or are you like, all right, this is cool because they trust their evaluation skills so well?
Yeah, I think I would say I trust our evaluation skills because just because a guy is a 5-star talent, he might not fit what you want to do. He might not have the right mentality. And I would rather have a 3-star guy with the mentality that he's going to come in here and work, and he's going to fit what you want to achieve over than a bougie 5-star diva, and those guys are out there. And give me a 5-star, but he's got to fit into what you want. So I'll take those lower, no, I can't say lower tier guys, but the 4s and the 3s that have the hard work, tough mentality. And I like their approach to everything so far. They want you to come to their camps. They need to see you in person before they offer. Nick Saban's, done very well at Alabama doing that same kind of process. And whether it's in-state, out-of-state, they're just trying to get the best talent in the door and guys who fit their molds and what they see this program evolving into. And hopefully some of these kids can come in and play early, but if not, there's going to be no rush to, throw them in there day one. It might be a 2-year process from these kids. That's going to be fine because hopefully you're developing talent on the other end and getting guys ready and get guys are stepping up that are already here on campus from the previous recruiting cycles. But overall, I love the energy. I love the excitement. I love keeping a lot of these in-state kids here. Hopefully we can keep a few more. And hopefully this momentum can keep going and, turn into some wins here early in the fall.
Jay, when you talk about this momentum, what does it mean to you that based on what we're hearing about the visit weekend, it's a very real possibility Nebraska could be over 20 commits before July 1st, which means most of their class would be done and dusted before you even start the month of July or let alone fall camp. What does that mean to you in terms of Matt Rhule's success on the recruiting trail? Is that a good sign now, or are you still in wait and see mode once these kids finally show up to campus?
Well, I think no, I like it because they can start working on the 2025, 2026 classes. They take care of 2024. It's like, boom, we got our guys. Hey, let's make sure that everybody's on board. We're still checking in with them. But guess what? Let's go to work on 2025 and 2026, where I think that's previous staffs, they weren't very efficient in that. So I think they're about as efficient as possible. So I like the effort. I love them getting after it, getting the guys they can get, and then they can go work on, filling that cupboard up for the years down the road, because we know you got to have depth, and it's hurting this team in years past, and it could be potentially be an issue this year as well with depth. So you got to secure that, and you got to go to work, and you want to be the first. You want to be the first visit in the door. You want to be the first phone call. You want to be the first DM. You want to be the first text message, whatever it is, to some of these 2025, 2026 kids. Because that's you get to them first, man. That holds a special place in their heart for these young kids when Matt Rhule or whoever it is, the OC, the DC, or even a recruiting coordinator reaching out and talking to a guy. So I love the mentality, and I love the efficiency. I love the energy, and I love the cryptic messages that are coming on Twitter as well. Like, he can keep those coming too.
Jay Moore is with us, Black Shirt Husker, NFLer, Hail Varsity Radio at JMoore44 on Twitter. Jay, you grew up and played ball in Elkhorn, really rough and rugged program that really, over the years, not just yourself, but there's been a lot of talent from Elkhorn play major college football in Lincoln. And you see what the Metro is with its skill set, but you also see that talent spreading out across the state, be it Ainsworth or Central Nebraska or Western Nebraska or Lincoln. Don't want to just pigeonhole. That said, it's not always been easy for Nebraska to get recruiting wins in Omaha. What's your take on that? And do you think that is going to change for the better for Nebraska? You had both Bell West stud wideouts say "I do" to Nebraska on Friday, and you're not going to get everybody, but they're trying, it looks like. And you know what kind of a challenge it's been in the Metro for a while.
Yeah, I tell you what, I just look back, recruiting is so cyclical. I just look back to, I was a 2002 graduate, and, in my class, I look at the guys from the state of Nebraska that came. I mean, we had a lot of guys. It was myself, Kurt Mann, David Horn, Mark LaFleur, Andrew Shanley, Cade Pittman, the North Platte guy, Matt Harrion, a Pierce guy. I know I'm missing. I mean, and you had Stevie Hicks that went to Iowa State, and he was a Creighton Prep guy. And then years before that, there was always 6 to 8 guys. I feel like every year, and it just wasn't Omaha. I mean, yeah, it might be Papillion, but you still had guys from out west and up north, and that was an awesome thing. But we did have a dry spell here. I want to say about the back, in the middle 2006, 2007, just there wasn't a ton, and that just happens. And that happens, but we're starting to see it ramp up. We saw it ramp up, with basketball, in-state recruiting and basketball, and they're starting to see it with football. So I think that's, you got to capitalize that for Nebraska. You got to jump on it, and you got to try to keep all the best in-state talent here. And it doesn't matter if it's from Ainsworth, if it's from Broken Bow, if it's from Albion, if it's from wherever, Holdridge. I want the best guys, and that's period. And again, like I mentioned earlier, they still got to fit within your system, and they got to fit. They have to have the right mindset. But the fact that it's coming back around, and that's only going to benefit Nebraska. The in-state talent is, and it's I would say the last, correct me if I'm wrong, 5-6 years has gotten a lot better. And I know we haven't kept some of those in-state guys here, unfortunately. And I don't know what the previous staffs was doing, but I like what this new staff is doing right now with the in-state kids. So it's all cyclical with the in-state guys, and hopefully I don't know what's coming behind them, the 2025 and 2026, but I imagine it's gonna be pretty dang good as well.
Jay Moore is with us here at Hail Varsity Radio, and Jay, if you're an in-state kid, let's say a freshman or a sophomore in high school right now, looking to the future of Husker football, do you think there's still that drive to go and be a Husker? We hear it from some kids that end up committing to Nebraska. I always wanted to be a Husker. Other guys, it feels like their mind is more open right now. Do you think that the results of this football season, upcoming 2023, are going to matter in the future? Because that was kind of our talking point a couple of months ago here on this show, that, this class of 2024, it looks sparse right now. Maybe they should need to see the results in the field. Turns out we were wrong, as you see this June surge that we've had over the past week and a half. Do you think that the results in 2023 are going to matter for future recruiting classes under Matt Rhule? Or do you think that Matt Rhule and his staff have done a good job selling the vision of what the future can be, regardless of what 2023 looks like?
I think it's going to, you win some football games, it's going to help. And you win important football games, it's always going to help. It's never going to hurt you. And, even if they do go 6-6, but somehow, they knock off some really good teams, and you can use that, man. You can just see how in year one you can really drive home what you've been preaching to parents and to recruits with year one results. You can also, if somehow things get sideways and off the rails early in the season, and we're looking at 4-8 like we've had before, I think you can still, always in your back pocket, look, it's year one, guys are learning, but I don't foresee that happening. I just don't, unless there's an abundance of injuries. I foresee, some success with this team. I just do. I like what's being done with this staff and what's going on so far, within the team and the dynamics of it all. So with that being said, somehow they go, 6-6, 7-5 in year one, man. And then you just point to what happened in year two at Baylor and Temple, and look what I did there. And he knows, and again, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, but he's probably saying, look, I have a hell of a lot more talent here at Nebraska than I ever did at Temple and Baylor in years 2 and 3. look out what we're going to do in those years as well. So, yeah, year one, being successful, that's going to definitely help. If you're not as successful, I think like you can back people off a little bit with injuries or whatever it is. But again, you're still preaching the process and the vision and what with how you see that kid fitting into your program. So, obviously you want to be as successful as possible, because I tell you what, you go 7-5 or somehow magically go 8-4 in year one. I tell you what, there's gonna be a lot of kids knocking on the door wanting to come play here.
Couple more minutes. Jay Moore is with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio at JMoore44 on Twitter. Jay, was there just a line of kids in your era? And that's not shade on you. You're still a vibrant young man. But it was just a different era. I mean, you're not that much younger than I am. And you saw what I saw from your sports eye as to what a winning program was, what the standard is and the expectations are. And listen, 90s or 90s, I'm not going there, but just always being in it and being in it till late in the year. Is it hard to recapture the minds and passion of all these junior high kids that what they know now is 4-8, 5-7?
I don't think so. I think there's so much attention here, and I got to imagine their parents are fans, and they remember exactly what we remember and what we saw in, the early 90s and, in the 2000s. So the excitement's there. I mean, you just look at the early successes we've had with other staffs, and obviously the season didn't go as planned, but all the excitement, when Ohio State came here a couple of years ago with game day, obviously we got boat raced, but people are chomping at the bit for success in this program, because it's been so long and we've gotten what we feel like is close, but yet maybe, it was further away than what we actually thought. But we get to that point and they're like, oh my gosh, this is happening. It's happening. It's going to happen, or it's closer. This is what I remember it feeling like, 10 years ago, or when I was in high school, or when I was in junior high. So I don't think it's going to take much, because once things go and they're having success, the parents are going to get more excited, and then that's going to get the kids more excited, and they're dragging them down to tailgate and go to games on Saturdays, and they're maybe you're dragging them to away games, like everyone used to do, and they still do. So I don't think it's going to take much when this thing gets going. I think it's going to grab a lot of people's attention.
Jay Moore is with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, talking Husker football, recruiting. And Jay, I want to get into year one, because you just mentioned the fact that once it pops, you think it's really going to go. And tell me about what a year one pop would look like in your mind. What do you think a resounding success of year one would be? And at what point do you go down to the sports book and bet Nebraska to win the Big Ten West?
I think
Elijah's private, by the way.
I think 7-5 would be outstanding. Okay. I really do. They got a tough start at Minnesota, but I think if they can achieve that, I think that's absolutely fantastic. If, like I mentioned earlier, somehow you hit your head on the goalpost and all of a sudden you're 8-4. I mean, holy smokes, that is. When's the last time we had 8 wins in a football season? It's been a while, right? I mean, Bo Pelini, right? I don't think Mike Riley ever got to 8 wins, right?
Riley got to 9,
2016,
right.
But yeah. They started out 6-0 and finished 9-4.
Right. So that would be, I think 7-5 is very attainable. I think 6-6 is very successful still. I mean, that gets you in a bowl conversation, and again, we haven't seen 6 wins in a while as well. So, but if 7-5 is, I think that's the sweet spot for me going forward. Anything above that is just icing on the cake. There's a little bit of wiggle room if 6-6 and 7-5 there. So, lot of time left, a lot of games to be played yet, but I think that's very attainable.
Jay, if Nebraska does end up going 6-6 this season, will that be the most attended bowl game in Detroit history?
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Let's pray for a little pinstripe. Okay.
There we go. That's what I was thinking. A little.
We don't need Detroit.
You like the
Nothing
Motor
against
City?
our friends. No, I don't dislike Motor City, but if you're going to be outside and cold and it's not tropical, let's at least go to a more famed venue.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Right.
That'd be cool. Is that the ACC matchup? Maybe a little Syracuse or Boston College
or
give me Clemson or give me death.
Well, you go back to that year one pop topic, and I mean, hell, Bo's first year was incredible, especially with how murderous their schedule was to start. Virginia Tech and Missouri were top 5, and then for them to close out, you get a 57-yard field goal, and then you derail Dabo. That was his interim first year. And just for food for thought for the room here, don't forget Pete Carroll and Saban both 6-6 their first year. I think Bama went 7-6 with the bowl win over Colorado, but he was at the Independence Bowl or some, I don't know, place that they're not used to going to in Alabama. So you get that first year pro back to college. I mean, it could be really cool. Jay, I'm going to switch gears from Nebraska football to the NFL. Your reaction to Aaron Rodgers as he was a guest speaker when it comes to psychedelics, and he's advocating the legalization of psychedelics. And I'm not asking for dirt or you getting uncomfortable, but I'm just saying in general, let's talk about medication for NFL dudes. And what I mean by that is just the abuse your body takes. You have medical marijuana that's legal. A lot of ex-NFL guys and current NFL guys swear by it as a way to heal up. But and I hear on other podcasts, Wolfie, the old Denver defensive man, he would microdose mushrooms from a focus standpoint before games. What podcast was that?
That was on Pardon My Take? It may have been Pardon My Take.
It might have been.
Guys.
Yeah, it might.
But then you also have another former Bronco, Jake Plummer, who grows mushrooms for a living.
Well, of course he is. He's a dirty hippie. Sorry, some of us are still pissed about 96 at Arizona State. But just in general, I mean, is all options okay options in your opinion, or what's your take on that, man?
Listen, I deal with pain issues every day. I'm dealing with one. I got a bad hip. I got a torn labrum in my left hip that's probably going to have to get worked on here pretty soon. And
it's from playing.
What's that?
It's from playing.
Yeah, I've had arthritis in my left hip for about 10 years, over 10 years now, and that's kind of worn through the cartilage in my left hip. Unfortunately, I'm just kind of making my way through it, and hopefully I can just get through the summer and then maybe get something done to it, in the fall or in the winter. But I take CBD daily.
Sure.
Do creams, do the pills, CBD, CBG, all that stuff. Because listen, you can take all the anti-inflammatories, you can take all the stuff. It is not really good for your body. It is bad for your stomach. It is bad for your kidneys. It's bad for your liver, and you got to be careful. Because I have over-the-counter stuff, but I also have prescription stuff. And you got to be careful taking those with other anti-inflammatories. And then all the other stuff you're given as players, the whole Toradol issue had come up in the past and how that's not good for you. There's other things, other anti-inflammatories. It's just not good for your stomach. You hear guys just talking about it, but then also the opioid crisis is serious, man. True. People can get super addicted to that because they work. Obviously, they work, and they help. They help a lot. So I would, other avenues need to be explored because it works. And it's not, you got to look at what its purpose is as well. If it's for pain, then let's look at that, and let's open our minds to this and understand that it's not making guys, it's not a performing enhancing drug by any means, right? It is from a pain standpoint. I mean, you put your bodies through hell for years, whether you start in college, hell, you say you start in high school, college, then how many ever years these guys play. I played 6 years and I turned 40 this year, and I feel like I'm 50 some days. I can't imagine what guys that played 10 plus years as an offensive lineman, as a defensive lineman, as a linebacker that put their bodies through that for 16 plus games a year for 10 plus years. I feel bad for them. It's the things they got to deal with. And let's not even forget about the mental issues that come along with it, whether it's the CTE or all those things. So I think I'm all for it, man, because there's a lot of guys that are hurting out there. And I just do not want them to, you can go down a dangerous path with pain meds, and it's a real deal. It's very, very serious. So I think, all options need to be explored from a medical marijuana standpoint, from a mushroom psychedelic standpoint, if that just to help guys out, because guys' bodies are bad, man. They are bad. And those over-the-counters and anti-inflammatories just aren't good for you at all, especially if you talk to some guy, I'm taking 8 to 12 ibuprofen a day, that's not good. That's not good for you. So if you can do something that's healthy and plant-based, for using those words. So I'd be all for it to help guys out, because they work as well. And I'm all about keeping guys healthy and alive and making sure their mental standpoint's really good as well. Because I know when your body hurts, man, it's very, very depressing. Sure. You can go through some rough days when your body's in that pain. So if you can feel good, you're going to be a better person, a better dad, a better husband, a better friend, so whatever needs to get done, I'm all for it.
Jay Moore with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, co-host, Big Red Wrap-Up at JMoore44. Bert, have a good week, brother. Thanks for talking with us, and always love spending time with you.
Yep. Thanks, boys.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Jay Moore. And tomorrow on the show, we'll spend time with Mitch Sherman. ESPN's Matt Schick will be with us. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Podcast for you, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Can download the segment you want or the entire show, video show, available as well. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel and at H Varsity Radio. So it is time for a steak and a beer bet. That being said, LSU is not taking any prisoners with the Rocco's Jello Shot Challenge for 2023. 64,808. There'll be joy or sorrow shots afterwards. Florida at just shy of 4. Wake Forest, no doubt, the way they lost that thing, that number jumped 80%. Virginia, laughable, under $1,000.
It's so funny for us to say laughable whenever we cover Nebraska, who hasn't sniffed the College World Series in decades.
Oral Roberts, 3203. Stanford, 918. Tennessee, respectable, 2205. I'll say this. If you're going to do a Jello shot tonight, say salute to Joe Schmidt and Grandma Shirley Hunt. We had Grandma's memorial service today, and my mom was, as always, incredible with her tribute to her mom and my grandmother. And about 30 minutes, I'm going to be doing a tribute to Grandma. So really wonderful service. We got to remember her, and I'm tying it back into shots. Grandma wasn't a shot taker. By accident, she got a Bloody Mary instead of a red beer on my 21st birthday, but still powered forward and took her down. But where are you going? Are you going Florida or LSU tonight? Because I think I've won round one in this steak and a beer bet.
Yeah, okay. I had to rub that one in. Well, I think on...
I didn't think it was going to hold up. I didn't.
I think on Friday, I was the one holdout who took Florida in the 3-game series. I think you and Connor both took LSU.
Yeah. So my Saturday victory was just momentary.
Well, it depends what happens tonight. And the big news, obviously, tonight is that Paul Skeen's not going to be on the mound for the Tigers. It was funny, Kurt Schilling tweeting out this morning,
Suck it up.
Yeah,
Rub some dirt on
he
the
was
bloody
asked, Kurt,
sock.
what are your thoughts on Paul Skeens throwing tomorrow for LSU on 3 days rest? And Kurt Schilling says, 3 days rest. At what, 21 years old? Take the effing ball.
Yeah.
Which is very Kurt Schilling of him, but alas, they're not going to go cops down in Arkansas and make this kid throw 300 pitches in a weekend. He is not going to be taking the mound tonight. I think that's bad news for LSU, unfortunately. And I think I got to ride with Florida.
You want to ride home? Get your ass out there and take the hill.
Oh, the funniest thing I ever saw about that with cops was Arkansas's coach, or Dave Van Horn, treating Kyle Cops. Was that his first name, Kyle?
I think so.
Whatever. Treating Cops like he's a U12 triple SA pitcher going out there pitching 300 pitches in a weekend.
DVH didn't want to hear any issues with numb elbows. I love it. But hey, I mean, Skeens, for the love of God, he had thrown 130 pitch and was still hitting 100 on the gun.
Mm-hmm.
So LSU's offense got to step it up, and Florida just took batting practice yesterday.
The wind is blowing again out towards right field today, so I think that's advantage Gators. I think I got to take Florida.
Okay, I'll stick with the Bayou Bengals. It's all good.
Let's do it.
All right, back at you tomorrow at 4. Check the podcast. Thanks for tuning in with Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.